So I am completely out of water and I don't want to go back to town. So let me show you guys 2 ways that you can purify water for your van without having to go back to town. All right, so it's time to get some water. So let's start by taking a look at the Guzzle H20 stream. And what this is a self-contained water filtration system using a carbon block filter and a UV lights. It's run by a small battery system that's inside the box. So really, if you have this and it's charged up, you can go to any running water source, especially like a stream, even a lake, or if there's anywhere there's decent water quality, and you'll be able to pull directly from that, filter it in the Guzzle, and then store it in your fresh water tank. So this is obviously really convenient to have with you on trips when you're going to be out and away from city water for an extended period of time. This just gives you a way to get fresh water basically anywhere you can find a water source. This consists of essentially this box, which contains all of the water filtration components, and then there is an intake hose and a fresh water hose. So let's go ahead and hook it up, dip it in, and then I want to see how fast this actually filters the water, because that's a big consideration of whether or not you can fill your complete water supply with this, depending on how much battery life there is in it and also how long it takes to pump water. So the red hose is the hose that we'll put into the water source, and then the clear hose is the fresh water. It's got the orange coating on it there. Just plug it in here, click, and then we'll go ahead and set this in the water source. I'm trying to keep it, there we go, fully submerged. Next step is to plug the blue hose into the blue side. Couldn't be any easier. Now we're going to bring over our 2-gallon water container, put the hose in, then we're just going to turn the power button on and watch it flow. So the Guzzle is a 2-stage filtration system using a carbon block filter and a UV sterilization light. So the carbon block initially removes any particles down to 0.5 microns. It's also going to take any chemicals out of the water, like if there was chlorine or other chemicals that carbon can remove. That's the first stage of the filtration. And then it goes through a UV sterilization light. And what this does is it kills the bacteria and protozoa, things that can make you sick from drinking water. And fun fact that I learned, the UV sterilization light does not actually kill those small things in the water that could make you sick. What it does is it scrambles their DNA so that they cannot replicate. So if you look at a microscope after it has gone through here, there may still be some wigglies in it, but they cannot replicate once they're inside your body and make you sick. So that's something I learned about this that I didn't know, but you should be able to get drinking water, quality water from any decent water source like this. We are almost full of our 2-gallon container. There we go. A little under 3.5 minutes to get 2 gallons of water. So we're looking at about 3/4 of a gallon of water per minute. That's with a brand new filter, and we're coming out of a relatively clean water source. So if you did want to fill an entire 20-gallon water tank that you have on board with you, it's going to take over 20 minutes to fill that entire tank, maybe around 30 minutes or so. So there's a few other things that come in an additional carrying case with the Guzzle that you might want to know about. There is an extra carbon block filter. These are supposed to last around 1,000 gallons or 6 months of use. You change that a couple times a year. There is a charging cable. I will say this is a 120 volt charging cable. I kind of wish this charged with 12 volts. Just be a little bit easier on the go to charge it without having to use an inverter that comes with. Now the other thing you can do with this, if you're not pumping directly into a water container like I am, and your vehicle is within about 30 feet, then you can use this extended hose to pump directly from the guzzle into your vehicle's water tank. So in order to connect to the vehicle, you use this longer hose, which on the delivery side has a threaded inlet, just the same as a garden hose. So if you can fill your van with a garden hose, then you can use this instead. Just keeping in mind, it does take about 1.5 minutes to pump 1 gallon of water. And also, if this is going to be lifting water up, let's say there's a bridge here and we're trying to pump from the creek to something that's maybe 15 feet higher, it's not going to pump as quickly, so then you might be at 2 minutes per gallon or even more. It's kind of hard to say until we would test something like that, but you do have this extended hose if you want to pump directly into your container. Instead of putting this intake hose into a fresh water source, you can also use pressurized city water. And in that case, you simply use this pressure reducing valve and put it into the end of the hose. And then you can use pressurized city water to pump water through the guzzle. Then the pump doesn't need to run, but you still want to have the UV light on so that it's sterilizing the water. So different ways to get water and different ways to deliver water with the guzzle. And the final thing that's in here is just an extra O-ring. So when you do change the carbon filter, you can also change out the O-ring so you don't get any leaks inside the box. So overall first impression of the Guzzle, I think this is great. If you're traveling in places where you're gonna have limited access to purified city water, especially if you don't want to go back to town to get water, because it's one of the first things you're gonna run out of in your van if you're on a backcountry trip. Of course, being next to a flowing creek like this and pulling your water from that, it's just a really nice experience to have as well. The Guzzle H20 stream is fairly compact. This would easily fit into most people's storage units that are in their van. It doesn't take up a lot of space. So I think if you're going somewhere like the High Sierras, or especially if you're going somewhere like Mexico, where you need to purify the water anyways, I would absolutely take a unit like this, because then you know wherever you go, you can have purified water. All right, so let's taste some freshly pumped water from the Guzzle H20 stream. It really doesn't get any better than that. Nice and cold, fresh from the stream. I know it's purified. I like it. Now let's take a look at a second option for purifying water that uses a different technology. So this is the ITEHIL Reverse Osmosis Portable Filter. And much in the same way as the Guzzle, it has a built-in battery system. It's self-contained, so if you need to get fresh water, all you need to do is bring this down to your water source, hook it up, and pump out. The difference with the ITEHIL is the technology is reverse osmosis. So instead of having the carbon block and the UV light, this also has a carbon block initial filter, but then it uses a reverse osmosis filter. And reverse osmosis is simply using pressure to push water through a membrane that only water can get through. So the water goes through the membrane and gets collected as fresh water. The rest of every impurity that's in here is gonna get pushed out as essentially wastewater. So we'll hook it up and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's take a look at the filters in the ITEHIL. So use this little device here. And this is the initial filter. So this is a carbon block. Activated carbon, put that in, twist it until it locks. That one's in. The other filter is your RO filter. So this is a really convenient and well-designed cartridge system because it's so easy to get in. On the underside of each filter, there's a different shape. So you really can't get them backwards. There's only one way to put them in. So we'll go ahead and set that in and lock it down. And now we are ready to go. So on this side, we have our water intake. And then on the other side, we're going to connect our freshwater hose and the wastewater hose in here. So inside this little carrying case are the two hoses. And we'll start with the freshwater and wastewater hose. Those just click in. And then on the other side here, we have the water intake hose. And that simply screws in. All right, so here's the water filter that we're going to put into the water source. Again, I usually like to weigh these down so that they stay submerged in the water. There we go. On the freshwater side, we have two hoses. The one with the little white tip in it, that's going to be your fresh, purified water. And then this one will be the wastewater that's produced during the reverse osmosis process. I'll go ahead and put this in the fresh water. And then simply turn on the unit. So hold the button down, the green light comes on, and now it will start pumping. So the interesting thing about reverse osmosis is that it produces not only purified RO water, but then there's also this wastewater product, which is essentially everything that does not get through the micron filter. But this isn't necessarily bad water, it's just not purified. So there's some interesting things that you could do with this. If water was really scarce, or you were pumping water that you already had in your stored tanks just to get drinking water, you would actually save this water for washing, or some people would just put it directly back into the tank it came out of. And then in your container would be your purified water. So unlike the Guzzle, which filters everything and there's no wastewater product, with RO, since it's a different technology, it just works a bit differently and produces this extra stream of water. So the thing I'm noticing already is that the flow from the ITEHIL RO filter is much slower than the Guzzle filter. That's just due to it being a totally different technology that works in a different way. The upside to it is that RO can filter out almost anything, including salty or brackish water, which the Guzzle cannot do. That's not going to take salt out of the water at all. So clearly putting water through an RO filter would not be the way to do it if you're trying to fill a large 20-gallon water tank. We've been sitting here for about 3.5 minutes, which is the amount of time that it took the Guzzle to fill this entire container, and we're only about 15 to 20% full. So we'll let this go and just see how long it takes to produce 2 whole gallons of reverse osmosis water. So in terms of portability, the ITEHIL is a really nice size as well. It's a little bit longer than the Guzzle, but also a little bit narrower, so approximately the same amount of size. Has a nice handle on it, definitely compact and very simple. So this would be a good unit to take along on a trip if you wanted to get the purest water, but weren't concerned about how long it actually took to produce it. Another thing about this that I really like is that it does charge via USB, so you don't need to have a 110 volt outlet or an inverter. You could really charge this with a solar panel or direct off of a cigarette lighter type outlet. So that gives it a little bit more versatility in terms of ways to charge. Now, I can tell you that this is not going to produce 40 gallons of purified water before it needs to be recharged. We'd be looking at more like 5 gallons, maybe 10 gallons max of water, kind of depending on how much work it has to do to purify the water. So it's really a different approach. I'm thinking that if you wanted to have the most pure water on your trip, you might have a combination of both of these filters working. So imagine taking the Guzzle down to the creek, filling up your 20-gallon water tank, and then using the ITEHIL filter here to fill up a drinking water container. If you want to be super safe and super sure, then possibly using these together might be the best option. In terms of price points, there is quite a big difference here. The ITEHIL is more of a mass-produced water filter that could be used for traveling or even under your sink at home. And you can get these for about $300 to $400 typically. The Guzzle is going to be quite a bit more expensive. It's more of a product specifically designed to be rugged and durable and for backcountry travel. That one will cost a little bit over $1,000 for that unit. But the benefit of it is that it's extremely rugged. It is also going to produce a lot more purified water on any given filling trip. One of the knocks on RO water is that it's totally demineralized. So it's said that if you drink demineralized water all the time, it will pull the minerals out of your body that your body needs. So you can use something like an electrolyte mix to add minerals back to the water. This is the stuff that I use all the time. It's called Element Electrolyte Mix. I'm not sponsored by them. I actually use this stuff on a daily basis. What I like about it is that it has a good flavor and there's no sugar added. So I put it in a little bit in all the water that I drink, and then I know I'm getting all the minerals I need. But this is definitely something you would have with you for your RO water if that's what you're drinking all the time. Oh, and look, we are almost full with our reverse osmosis. A little bit under 30 minutes and there it goes. So 26.5 minutes to fill 2 gallons of RO water. Now let's do a taste test with the ITEHIL RO water. And again, it's delicious. It doesn't taste like anything, so I can't really say that it tastes any different than the water from the Guzzle. They both taste amazing. This is a spring-fed creek, so you would expect good quality tasting water. I'm gonna add some electrolytes to this. That's damn good. That's what I drink all day, pretty much. Purified water, a little bit of electrolytes, glass jar, keeps me going. So there you have it, 2 different ways to filter water. If you run out of water like I did and you have a clean water source nearby, then you've got 2 different options. The Guzzle is going to be the faster of the 2 water filters because it uses the carbon block with the ultraviolet sterilization light, and that's just able to push water through a lot faster. The ITEHIL is the better filter if you're focused on absolute water purity, especially if you're pulling out of water sources that are pretty questionable. I would trust the ITEHIL a little bit more because RO is really the superior water filtration technology. But depending on what your goals are, either of these products could work for you. If you're interested, we have links in the description for you guys, so check those out. Thanks again, as always, for watching, and we will see you guys again next time.